Okay, good morning. This is story time. So, y'all are at my cleansing bridge. Okay, and you're like, what do you mean, cleansing bridge? And I mean exactly that. Okay, so I'll try to do a panorama. It's not a panorama. Okay, so 5 years ago, this bridge, it's the bridge by my house. Okay, my house is like down there. But we pass this bridge every day, okay? And it was covered in like giant blue penises and ugly words and just ugliness. Okay, it was. And because it was. And me and my kids, and they were smaller then, we drove by it, and that's what they saw every day on their way to school and home, right? Look how beautiful, though. Isn't that beautiful? So, anyway, it's beautiful. I don't know if I if I did it right and you could see what I was showing you, but it's beautiful, okay? So it's been 5 years. Now, I call it the cleansing bridge because at that point in time, I went through something very traumatic for me, okay? And I probably really needed therapy. Let's be honest. But it didn't. I didn't go, because we can, between, whenever, we can do our own therapy, okay? And we can strengthen our relationship with God in those times, okay? Because that's healing, okay? And that's really the only true healing that you can ever get is whenever you have a cleansing bridge, okay? So a bridge has many different meanings, right? So in our physical aspect, it bridges two lands, two peoples together, okay, on either side, right? Because they're separated by a body that's not traversable, right? So we as men create these bridges, right, to bring together two different foreign bodies, okay? But in a spiritual sense, a bridge is a bridge between the earth and the heavens, man and our Creator, right? It bridges that gap, that untraversable gap, okay? That it does to connect us to our Creator. Okay, so this was my cleansing bridge. Now, sometimes whenever you go through something traumatic, your therapy can be something in physical form, right? Because you have to do an action. You have to have an action, cleansing action to cleanse yourself, okay? And so my therapy, by cleansing the ugliness of that humanity had put on this bridge, it was helping me cleanse myself, right, from the ugliness that I had endured, okay? It was therapy, because it was, and it's a pretty big bridge. I don't know if y'all can tell, but it's a big bridge. It took me a couple months. So, but that was the beginning, and that's what I call it. It's not rote, okay? But that is what I call the beginning of knowing your living path, okay? We are all on a living path. We are, and the twists and the turns are really up to us and how we adjust to them. But it is the knowing that you walk with God, that you are protected on a constant basis, and the things that are put into your path, they're put in your path for reasons, that you can't even comprehend, okay? That won't even be shown to you all the different things until a later date, and then you'll see the pieces that God already knew, but you'll see them eventually. Okay, so this is the story of why this bridge needed to be cleaned. Now, yes, am I fixing to do it again? Yes, I am. But that's not the point. and I'm not going to cleanse it this time, not exactly. I'm going to put pretty stuff on it. So I'm excited about that. But anyway, okay, so this is the story. A long time ago, not really, it was like 5 years ago. So I'm the kind of person, I'm really weird. I don't know if y'all have picked up on this yet, but I'm really, 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 really weird, okay? And we all have a relationship with God, right? We do. Even if you know it or not, you do. And I've always been, lead me and I will go. Ask of me and I will do, But when you say that and you're going to get pushed to your limits, okay? God will push you to your limits, but he'll get you through it. You will be in a little protected bubble of safety through it, but he will test you, on how serious you are, how serious you are and what you're willing to do, for not only your brethren, but how much you're going to listen to God, because we all can listen to God. We all can hear what is desired of us. We can. We just, some of us don't. Anyway, so, or we choose to not. There you go. But I was always the one, yes. Lead me and I will go. Okay? So, a lot of things that you're led to do or you're told to do, and I know that sounds weird, they're easy. They are. They're easy. Give somebody a message, a verbal message, okay? That's easy. You're told to tell somebody something. That's easy. And then you're told something, and then you go and you save somebody's life, as in, you were told something, they're fixing to do something, and you go where you're told, and you tell them what you're told to tell them, and you stop them from killing themselves. Okay, they're like, that's kind of easy stuff, right? Because that's not trauma, because the trauma hasn't happened yet, right? It's just like you stop it before, like it's not the extremes, okay? Now, how did I put it? Through my life, I've seen a lot of the different stages of humanity, right? The different aspects of the primal instincts of humanity, right? The ugliness of it. And there's different stages, there is. And at this particular time in life, I was called, let's say that, and put in like the ugliest form of it, okay? So this is the story. And then I'll tell you what I view as why it happened and why I was called to do it. Okay, so this is a point in time where my honey was not working at this moment in time because COVID had just started. He was freaked out. You know how that, some people just were really freaked out. And so, the shutdown happened. He wasn't working. And I was still working because, I was the seamstress to first responder. So I was obviously, I had to work, and I wasn't scared of anything. So whatever. And he, anyway, so he was driving me around, right? He was my chauffeur, which I loved, okay? I loved it. And my kids were, before, it was right before, I think it was right before they like shut everything down, because they were still going to school. So it was before they closed the school. And so they were getting off the bus at their grandma's at that point in time, because we lived in West Monroe and they were still going to Monroe schools. And so they would get off the bus at their grandma and papa's house. Okay. And so all the grandkids did. So it was like, I don't even know how many of them. It was like, I don't know, it was like 6 or 8 of them. It's a whole bunch of grandbabies anyway. And not my parents, my ex-husband's. And anyway, so here comes a big truck. But so I went to, my honey didn't take me to work that day, and it was the first time in a month that I had actually drove. But God has his plans, that we don't see, and we don't know why. Things happen the way they happen. But it was the first time I had drove in a month, and I went to go pick up the kids from their grandparents. And so I stopped, I stopped there, and I pulled in the parking lot, and the kids got off the bus, and I was like, okay, y'all go get Grandma and Papa and everybody a hug and kiss, go give them some loving, And I sat in the car because, again, and so they went inside to go give lovings to everybody, because that's the right thing to do, because everybody's important and they need to, hugs are important. So they go inside, and I'm sitting in the car. And I'm doing nothing, okay? I'm just waiting for kids to get loving, all right? I'm just doing nothing. And all of a sudden, I hear a scream. And I know the school bus just went by, And so I'm thinking, oh, okay, I am not perfect. Y'all just don't know I'm not perfect. And yes, I am getting a cigarette out of this car because, again, this is a subject that it's triggering. So I'm buzzing a lot of cigarette, and I apologize, but okay, so disregard me. Look at the prettiness, so the kids are inside. I hear a scream. I open the door, and I'm thinking to myself, well, that must be that little girl. It's one of Cadence's little friends, little sister, Lisa. Lisa was her name. Them teenage boys must be picking on her. Okay, because I'm thinking these kids, this is when I'm a visualizer, okay? So I'm thinking that these teenage boys just got off the bus with little Lisa, which is, she's like in junior high, and they are picking on her, okay? And then, so I'm just sitting there, okay? I'm just sitting there thinking, and I was debating on going over there and fussing at some teenage boys, okay? And then I hear a scream again, and this is like a horrible scream. The screams that something's wrong scream. So I open the door, and I step out one foot, and then the third scream, which was a blood-curdling scream. And I'm like, something's really, really wrong. Something's wrong. And so I take off running. Now, we're in Lakeshore, and they're on this road. It's really big properties, okay? It's like the biggest properties over there. It's huge yards. Anyway, so I take off running. Lose my shoes. And I'm running. As I'm running, I'm like, y'all need to stop. Y'all need to stop. Because I think it's little boys bullying a little girl, okay? And I can't see because there's multiple different properties and there's multiple different lines of trees, right? So I can't see what's going on at this point in time. But my little chunky self was running. And so I get closer, and I can see through the trees people on the ground, right? but they're too far away. I can't make anything out, really. And I still think, oh, somebody's kids are tussling on the ground, right? It's in my head. That's what I'm thinking. Sorry. Look, y'all just look away, look away. But that was not the situation. Okay, so as I got closer, and I'm sitting there, saying, y'all need to stop, y'all need to stop. I could see then that it wasn't what I thought it was. And then as I got closer and I could see, it was in November, and I thought, well, early November, and I thought, okay, well, they must be doing a Halloween spoof. See, and that's how, ooh, yeah, like, right. So I thought that they were making a video of like a Halloween something, okay? Like a horror Halloween something. Because there was a girl, Lisa, standing above this situation that's on the ground. She got her phone out, and she's videoing it as she's screaming bloody murder. And there's a man on the ground, and on top of that man, from the chest, she's covering with her body this old lady, gray hair, the short, curl right here, that. This old tiny lady is covering this man with her body, and his chest, like she's laying and trying to guard his face. She's trying to guard his upper body and his face with her body. And at her foot, now I'm still coming, okay? I'm still coming, so I'm trying, my brain's trying to figure everything out as I'm getting closer. And there's a guy in a hoodie, in a dark hoodie. There's a man in a dark hoodie by this man's legs, and he's got 2 butcher knives in his hands. And he's just slashing at this man's legs at this moment in time with these butcher knives. And in my head, I'm thinking, okay, well, this has got to be a spoof. They're doing a movie. But then I got closer. And, we can't, and I realized it was real, because when I saw veins, big gashes all over this man, and I could see veins in these gashes. And anyway, then I knew it was not a spoof. I knew it wasn't a movie. Behind the boy, the man in the hoodie, there was another man walking up with a crowbar. It's an older man, probably in his 50s. He's walking up behind that guy in the hoodie with a crowbar. And I looked at the guy, because I couldn't see his face. He was down. His head was down. And I told that guy, I was like, look, you've got to stop. You got to stop. You can't do this. And he looked up. And he was one of my son's best friends. He's a 17-year-old boy. He's a lot older than my son. But my son knew him. And okay, I didn't know him very well. He was just a little sweet boy in band, okay? But he's like 6 foot something, okay? He was a senior. My boy was a freshman, but they all knew each other, okay? But he'd only saw me a couple times, in the neighborhood. And at band practice, I didn't know him. He didn't know me. He just knew of me. He knew my kids, and he knew my godchildren, because I babysitted them, and they were his friends. So that's all he knew of me. He knew my children. Okay? He knew my children. Anyway, it was him, but he didn't look like him. Like his eyes were different. His eyes were like black, and they weren't supposed to be black, okay? And I looked at him, and I realized it was him, and I was like, baby, you've got to stop. And he went from the legs and went over and jabbed him in the side. And I grabbed him as he jabbed him in the side. So I grabbed his wrist, both his wrist, with these big, big knives, big kitchen, like they're big kitchen knives. So I grabbed both his wrist and I was like, baby, you gotta stop. You can't do this, baby. You gotta stop. Please, Lord, help him to stop. Please, God, help him to stop. Just lay it down, baby. Just lay it down. And so, I'm sitting there talking to this boy and reminding him, I said, I love you. We love you. You gotta stop. You gotta stop, sweetheart. You gotta stop. Because all I could think is he's fixing to kill his daddy. He was his daddy. And his grandma was laying on top of him, on top of the daddy, okay? And he's stabbing around his grandma, okay? He was stabbing his daddy around his grandmother, okay? Like, he would, yeah. So this is, woo, yeah. Anyway, so I have in him, I'm talking to him, because I love him. I don't know him, but I love him, I don't want him to kill his daddy. I don't want that for him. I don't want that for his daddy. I don't want this boy to ruin his life and his soul. I don't want that, because if you kill your daddy, your life's over. Even you can't live with yourself. You can't come back from that in here. You can't. It would have ruined that whole family. Would have ruined that whole family. It would have. Anyway, so I'm sitting there talking to this baby. He's a giant baby, but he's still a baby, And as I'm talking to him, I'm walking him by his wrist with these giant knives in them over away from his daddy and them, okay? And I get him to the road, and I'm talking him down. I was like, baby, let's put these knives down, And so I get him to put the knives down, and he ended up going inside. And the cops, everybody's coming, okay? Everybody's coming out. Now, he went inside. I followed him. But then he shut the door, and it was locked. And I was like, because I wanted to make sure he wasn't going to kill himself, okay? I didn't want the baby to hurt himself. He was not in his right mind, and I didn't want that baby to hurt himself. But he locked the door. I don't know how to pick the door, so I didn't know what to do, right? And I was, whatever. So I go back to the daddy, because that's all I knew to do, and we're waiting for the cops and the ambulance to come. And so I'm lifting up his head. We're putting pressure on all these gashes, his ribs and face and everywhere, So we're putting pressure on him and lifting his head up, and I'm talking to him, and we're just reminding him to breathe, breathe. And anyway, and so then the cops get there, and I know these cops, right? I know the cops, and they come with these big assault rifles, right? And they're running by us, and the ambulance was there, but they wouldn't come. They wouldn't come until, everything was shut down, right? And so these guys with these big assault rifles come running by us, and one of them hits the little girl in the head. She's holding pressure on her daddy, with the assault rifle, and all I could think was, they're fixing to kill this baby. And I said, look, he's just a baby. He's just a baby. Don't kill him. He's just a baby. Because they know me, Anyway, so we're still doing that, and they're trying to, the boy ended up catching the house on fire, right? Because I think, I don't know, but he did. And so I didn't know if this man was going to live or die. I didn't know. And anyway, and then we hear a gunshot, and I'm thinking, oh, they done killed that baby. Oh no. But they didn't. It was actually something in the fire exploding. Okay, thank goodness. And then whenever they came out with the boy, I told the daddy, I said, your baby's okay. Because regardless, even if his son tried to kill him, it's still his baby. He still loves his son. You know, you got to. Anyway, so I was like, he's okay. They had him, you know, and then the ambulance came, and then, you know, I had to get questioned and go to the thing. So I called my honey after the fact. And this is not everything, okay? This is not everything, but well, this is the short version. But I had to go to the, you know, the police station, you know, after that. And I called my honey. I said, look, and they told me not to talk to anybody about it because they didn't know if the man was going to live or not, you know. So, sorry. Oh, so they didn't know he was going to live. And so anyway, I called my honey. I said, look, I got to go. There was an accident. I have to go to the police station. They have to take my comment. I can't talk about it. And just know that I need you to be compassionate when I get home. Okay? I need you to be compassionate when I get home. And anyway, so I do that. I go home and he meets me at the door with aggression, right? Because a lot of people, when they're scared, they come at you with aggression instead of compassion, because that's just how some people react, because they're scared and they couldn't do anything about it because they love you and they don't want you in danger because you're everything to them. Anyway, it doesn't matter, but they just do it the wrong way, and that's okay. And so he was upset that I put myself in that situation, you know, because I do a lot. Okay, I put myself in unnecessary situations because I'm supposed to. Because I am. And because, okay, let's think about this. So if my honey would have drove me, right, he would have come at that boy with aggression. He would have got stabbed. Okay? If I wouldn't have went there, and it probably had to be me, if I wouldn't have went, you know, that boy would have got hit in the head with a crowbar. Because that man was about to hit him in the head with a crowbar, okay? And this is a sweet boy, okay? He just lost his shit. And, or the man would have died, you know. If that boy, if I wouldn't have come to that boy with love and compassion, things wouldn't have went the way they went. And if he didn't know me, but he didn't know me, but he knew my children and he loved my children and he knew of me, right? I'm the neighborhood hippie. I'm the one that makes, you know, gets everybody to do group hugs, you know. He knew of me. He knew of my love. He knew of my love, right? He did. And that's why I was protected, right? Because I came in love, right? I came in love. And it wouldn't have worked how it worked out had it not been like that. You know, if had I not came in love, it wouldn't have went like that. It wouldn't have. That man would have died. That boy's life would have been ruined. That little girl's life would have been, that mama, that grandma, you know, it wouldn't have worked out the right way. It just wouldn't have, you know. But you come in love. You come in love. And God walks with you when you walk in love. It's like a little protective bubble of safety. It is. And it is. And I used to have phobia of big knives and swords, because when I was little, swords, you know how they had them on the 3 thing on the wall? I kicked them. I kicked the wall and it went through my leg. And so since then, I had a phobia of knives and swords. Anyway, I didn't have that phobia anymore. You know, I didn't. After that, I didn't really have a phobia of dying either, because I'm like, oh, it's not my time. You know, whatever. And anyway, but that's the reality of it. You know, we can't see things as they're going on, but God works everything meticulously, meticulously, meticulously. Now, time passes. I'm not going to go into why. Y'all can guess. You know, yes, it did really mess me up to see that, to see the ugliness of how ugly humans can be. You know, even if they're a beautiful person. Like, that baby was a beautiful, sweetest little thing, but he snapped. But he lives with his mom. He went to prison, okay? He did. He went to the kid prison, okay, for a while, actually. And I would check on him, you know, and because I had friends in the prison, you know, because I was their seamstress. And anyway, but it messed me up for a while, like rocking in a ball periodically, because I'm I'm a visual person, and so it was like those glances, those. I was in trauma, and my honey was being ugly to me. Okay, not how you think, but he was. But he was going through his own stuff too. Okay, he had lost his mama. And you know how that is. People deal with their stuff in their own way. So my honey was being ugly to me. I ended up painting the bridge because I needed therapy. I did. And I needed cleansing from all the vile things that I had experienced in life. You know, not just that, but everything that I had experienced. And I needed God. I needed God. I needed God to know that I needed God. You know, I did. I did. And I was thankful. I was thankful for that situation. I was thankful that man did live. I was thankful that boy didn't die and he didn't kill his daddy, because he would have killed himself. I'm thankful. I was thankful that it ended up how it ended up, you know. But sometimes you have to do therapy physically. And so if you need a cleansing, sometimes you have to do something in the physical realm that represents cleansing of the soul. And that's what this bridge is the cleansing of the soul. So, but, so I, months and months and months later, that man got out of the hospital, and I went and I talked to him, and it had messed him up. It did. It messed him up pretty bad, but I went and talked to him, and I asked him to drop the charges on his son, you know, because it wasn't his son. It wasn't. And that, you know, regardless, you know, I knew he loved his son. And anyway, he did drop the charges, and the boy ended up getting out of jail, whatever, Green Oaks, you know, whatever. And now, you know, he did go to live full-time with his mama. They did, the kids did. Now, come to find out, his daddy was slightly abusive. This is my nicest way to put it. And he was, you know, he was on a lot of stuff. The daddy was on a lot of stuff. And over time, you know, people will snap. You know, unfortunately, you know, when they think they're trapped in something, they will snap. And that's what happened. But the mama got full custody. And the little boy finished school. He went to college. He works for the college now, in like the lab, you know, and he helps the professor, and he's getting his education, and he's doing really good. And the little girl's doing really good too. She's in color guard. She's doing great. They're all doing great. But their mama didn't have full custody, you know, and they were living in that. You know, those kids were trapped in that until that stimulus arose. And then the mama got full custody, you know, and then they were safe. Now, the little boy, you know, I know that, you know, he still has to learn to forgive himself for losing himself. But that's the reality of it. You know, that boy just lost himself. You know, we can lose ourselves in anger. We can. We can. It's easier than you think, but you try not to. Fix it another way. Fix it another way. But they're all doing just fine. They're doing just fine. All of them. You know, the daddy got off all that stuff. Oh, and he still has health issues. But at least he's in reality now, you know, and he has a better relationship with his kids, and, you know, anyway. But, yeah, it really did mess me up. And yes, I painted a bridge as therapy, and I need to repaint it. And shortly after that, I left my husband. He's not my husband. He will be soon. And because he was being ugly to me, and I was traumatized, you know, because it's the ugliest form, you know. Anyway, and he was going through his own stuff, but I don't. I'm at the stage in life I expect I expect certain things anyway. But my honey had to do some healing, and I had to do some healing too, right? And so we separated for a little while, but we got back together after like 6 months. And we both had to do some self-healing, right? Because I was told at that point in time, you won't ever be loved right until you love yourself. That's a powerful thing to know, you know. Because how can we expect anybody else to love us fully, you know, all wonders of us, if we can't fully love ourselves, right? Flaws and all. So it's important. It's important to love yourself so that you can give out that love and you can receive that love. You know you're worthy to receive that beautiful love. But, so anyway, and we're also, if you were wondering, okay, me and my honey's always been awesome, but we did have that little woohoo, but we're better for it, you know. Anyway, so I don't know where I was going with this. I hope something I said was helpful. It was, you know, I haven't wrote this story down. Okay, look, so I was winging it. I was winging it because I was just telling you the story, and I have a hard time with that story. I know that's horrible, that it's still, you know, but whenever you experience things like that, it's regardless, and I don't like talking about my past either, you know, because you relive it, you know, because especially people I'm a visual person, you know, so, anyway, but life is better for these things, okay? My honey, I mean, we treat each other. He's my world. I'm his world. And whenever you lose something, you realize how wonderful it is and how lucky you are, you know? And that's how, and then and then life gets so much better, right? Life gets so much better because you realize things, and you fix some of your flaws, right? You fix some of them, and you forgive yourself for them. And you forgive the other person, you know, because you realize, oh, you know, it's okay, you know. Anyway, but yeah, so I will be redoing this bridge. I'm not sure exactly what all with. But it's time. It's time. Now, I don't need a cleansing bridge. It's not needed. I'm okay. I know everybody was like, ooh, I don't know about that. But I am. And so, if you need therapy, but you don't want therapy, because, you know, sometimes sometimes it don't work. But, and the best therapy is therapy with yourself. The deepest part of you, you know yourself better than anybody else, right? You do. And therapy with yourself, therapy with your creator is the best therapy. And sometimes it's good to do therapy in a physical form, right? Of whatever you're needing. You know, whatever you're needing, do it in a physical form. A physical action. Because that's really good too. That's helpful. It's helpful. You know, it is. And anyway, everybody's fine. Everybody's fine. Everybody's fine. And things happen. Horrible things can happen, but they happen for their own reasons. And over time, it all works out for a benefit. You know, we might not see that benefit right then. We may not see it. We may not understand it. You know, we're not supposed to know everything. We're not. And that's okay. It's okay that we don't know everything. It's okay that we don't know why things are happening. It's okay. But what's important is that you know that you are walking with God. And regardless of what happens, you've got God. And he's got, oh, y'all just don't know. Okay, so I left my honey with nothing, okay, because the furniture was his, all kind of stuff. And with 2 weeks, I got my own house, okay? I got my own house in 2 weeks. And then I was given, because I rely on God, I was given a whole house full of furniture. Whole house full. Washer, dryer, lazy boy recliners, beds. Like, it was crazy because I'm really good at relying on God and knowing that God's going to take care of me. And then somebody gave my daughter, which I was taking to work and school because she was in college at that point in time, a car. Like, it was just crazy. Like, it was, anyway, but it's just, God takes care of you, you know, and that's happened a lot in my life. Y'all just don't. Well, if you've watched some of my videos, you know, certain ones that are, you know, about my past life, y'all know that I have had to rely on God a lot. You know, I have left everything a few times in life, and I'm just like, nope. I'm going to rely on God, and I'm going to have a better life. Period. And God's going to get me through. God's going to get me through. And my life is going to be 1,000 times better than it was. And I don't care if I lose every tangible item that I've accumulated over my years. I don't care. I don't care. You know, I've left 2 houses that I built and paid for. I don't care. I don't care. You know, it's how I'm treated. It's how I'm treated. And I will work and I will rebuild lives, and that life will be so much better. So much better. You know, but that's my mentality, because I know I know that God wants good things for me. And I know that if I jump out on that limb to better myself and better my family, that God's going to be right there with me. And every step of the way, He's going to be amazing me. Like, amazing. Amazing. You know. Because sometimes all you have is God. Sometimes all you have is God. And really, that's what we need. Is that relationship with our Creator. You know, because that'll get you through. That'll get you through anything. 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 You know, things might not be in your time. And that's okay. But you get through it. If this was helpful, let me know, honey. And if you want to subscribe, please subscribe. Like 90-something% of people that watch my stuff, they're not subscribed. And if you find my stuff helpful, please do give me a comment, and I will respond. You know, there's no telling when I'll respond, but I'm sure it'd be something sweet. But yeah, please do, and I hope this was helpful. Again, it's me, so I go in circles, and then it goes like this. So, hope you got something out of it, and